Okay, sorry about that. Had to get Facebook set up. So today's topic is, do you fear God? This is episode 19, so welcome. Today it is just me. Ryan's not feeling too good, so I am here. Now, whenever also sorry, I left my mic at the house, so I'm using one of the microphones. So if I'm quiet, it's the mic. Now, when I asked, do you fear God, there's a bunch of different answers, right? And it also depends on what your interpretation of fear is in that question. And you guys know me, I like looking at the science of, well, anything really, and how, I like using science to prove God's existence and how it goes hand in hand. So the science behind fear is when you go, say we're in the woods, right, and somebody starts chasing you or something starts chasing you, like a jaguar or something. There's this chemical called, well, technically it's hormone, but it's adrenaline, and whenever something strikes you, it causes it. Sorry, I'm losing my words. It initiates it, basically, and it goes through your body, and it causes things to happen. The type of things that it causes is it makes the heart beat faster, and the lungs breathe more efficiently. It increases your heart rate, meaning there's more blood to the body and the brain, which makes your brain more alert, and your muscles get stronger and have more stamina because there's more oxygen being brought to it by the blood. The adrenaline, it like helps you run faster, think quicker, you're more efficient. It allows you to react in like dire situations, and that's because fear triggered it, basically. I did a paper in high school about fear because we were doing like negative and positive connotations, and we were talking about if fear was good or bad and blah blah blah. But some of his examples of like adrenaline rushes and all that is like a parent being able to lift or not completely lift, but lift part of a car up to get somebody out, like their child, or running from a threat. So fear isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but it can be. So things like anxiety and phobias, those are in the like negative connotation side of it. And those are actually examples of ungodly fear. Our topic is, do you fear God? And so there is godly fear and ungodly fear. And depending on how you look at fear depends on, again, your answer to the question. But to be able to fear something, you have to understand the power behind it, right? So in the Bible, there's plenty of examples of God's power, right? In the Old Testament and the New Testament. There's the flood and the creation, Sodom and Gomorrah. Those three are in Genesis. Then we got the 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, which is in Exodus, the walls of Jericho, which is in Joshua, and then all of the miracles Jesus did and the resurrection, right? All of these are examples of God's power. I mean, he created the entire world. And whenever I'm asking you about fear, it reminds me of This one thing Brother Ray was talking about. So you're standing in a road, right? And all of a sudden, a semi truck going 70 miles per hour is coming straight at you. Do you fear the semi truck? It's not necessarily that you fear the semi truck, because if it was sitting still, you would not fear it whatsoever. You would probably, like, if it was like for show or something, you'd ask to go honk the horn. You're scared of what the semi truck can do to you. And there's some people, when you ask them if there's a semi truck coming at you, would you be scared of it? And they'll be like, no, I'm not scared of that. And then other people are like, yeah, I'd be scared, but I'd get out of the way, you know. So there's ignorance and there's knowledge. In Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. What that's telling us is that fearing God helps us to learn and gain more knowledge, right? And ignorant people, or the fools, they're, like I said, ignorant. Sorry, I started reading a different line. They despise it, you know? Sorry, lost track for a second. That's why I like whenever Ryan's here, because I'm able to bounce off of him and take a second. So it says there that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, right? In Deuteronomy 14:23, it says, "And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, and tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always." And then in Proverbs 2:3-6, "Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, for thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding." So, what Deuteronomy and Proverbs is telling us here is that fear of God is learned. It's not inherited. Just like how we fear pain to a certain extent, touching the eye of a stove will teach you to not do it again out of fear of being burned, out of fear of being in pain. And it's the same way with God. God sometimes has to teach you so that you don't do it again. It's like when we were little, we feared discipline from our parents. It's the same way with God. We fear God's discipline on sin. And that discipline is out of love, because, like that's what my poppy's always told me. If he didn't love me, then he wouldn't have punished me for doing something wrong. He would have just let me do it. Right? And I'm glad he taught me, because otherwise, probably be doing something stupid. When we say, or when we ask, do you fear God, I'm not asking about the type of fear that makes you cower down, or the kind of fear that, like, where somebody's putting a gun to your head telling you to worship their God or something. The fear of God reminds us of his love. It gives us an understanding. It humbles us. It's respecting him, obeying, submitting, and worshiping him. An example, I forgot to pull up a verse. My bad. Let me go ahead and pull it up. There we go. And a perfect example of all of that right there, of what the fear of God actually is Abraham and Isaac, right? Abraham submitted to God. He obeyed God. He went to worship God as he had asked him, and was taking Isaac up on the mountain without a sacrifice because God told him to sacrifice, or without a lamb. Isaac was the sacrifice. Well, in Genesis 22:12, it tells us, and he said, "Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me." So God was able to see that, Abraham was able to prove to God that he was going to obey him, that he understands. And God was testing him, you know? So there's two types of fear that I'm technically talking about. There's godly fear and there's ungodly fear. Godly fear is logical, it's instinctual, and it's constructive. Godly fear makes us feel stronger with the Lord because it's, again, like I had said, it reminds us of his love, reminds us to obey him, and it humbles us. The fear of God is what allows us to worship him. And back to it being learned, the Pharisees, God had to teach them the fear of God. Now, ungodly fear is unreasonable, it's illogical, and paralyzing. It makes us feel vulnerable and weak. Like I said earlier at the beginning, ungodly fear is things like anxiety, phobias, irrational fears, like a fear of heights or scared of the dark, right? Fear of heights, you're not necessarily scared of the fall. You're scared of the sudden stop at the end because that's what gets you. And then there's the darkness. There's this one meme that I like. It says, "You're not scared of being alone in the dark. You're scared of not being alone in the dark." Ungodly fear is what the devil deceives us to thinking. Everything that, well, not necessarily everything, but everything was given to us for a reason by God. Fear serves a purpose within us. Every emotion that we have, it serves a purpose. The devil is able to use our emotions and twist it. If you think about it, even Jesus got angry, right? But he still didn't sin. So, on the top with fear, another example of ungodly fear is, I can never let my kids go outside. You know? That's illogical. It's irrational. I'm sure there was something to cause you to think that, but it's not like you can never let your kids outside. Ungodly fear can cause you to sin as a reaction, because that's typically what fear causes, is some sort of reaction. Ungodly fear is wanting to be in control 100% of the time, instead of letting go and letting God, instead of letting God be in control. You can have the understanding of, yeah, I know God's all powerful, but I'm in this really tight money situation, so I don't know. Guess I'll go sell drugs. That's illegal, therefore it's a sin. Or you get caught here's the paralyzing thing that I was talking about. You get caught in a lie, right? Somebody confronts you about it, and all you can do for a split second or something is staring at them and trying to process how you got caught or process what to say next, which normally can either lead you into lying more and lying again or fessing up. Ungodly fear is not healthy at all. It's kind of like, not a poison. Anyways, I want you guys to go learn what it means to fear God for yourself. I've given you examples of God's power. I've given you, not a lot, but a couple of verses that talk about the fear of God. It's not the type of, again, like I said in the beginning, whenever I asked you do you fear God, I'm not asking, do you fear God because he's so powerful that he can squash you in less than a second? I'm asking you, do you fear God in the sense that you're able to worship him and respect him, not cower down? So go learn for yourself what it means to fear God, and remember that God is able. Thanks for watching. This was, hang on. This was episode 19. Do you fear God?